So I have on the agenda today, we have continued discussion scope of work group values, platform values, and co-op values. I'd like to start off with having Barry report on his conversation with Nash.
Yeah.
Then I want to talk about expanding the new member surveys and how many we want to expand to and what method we're going to use. And then I want to talk a little bit, I think we should talk a little bit about how we want our work group to operate. There was some discussion that Kathy brought up in her proposals about work groups, trying to determine whether there's an optimal number of people. Are we going to keep it open for ongoing memberships, and how we want to operate? If anybody, I see Lumio experiment invite. I'm not sure who added that item, but we want to talk about the Lumio experiment. Anything else anybody just want to bring up today?
Well, I want to talk about all those.
Great. Okay, well, let's get started. Okay, so let's start with Barry. I want to hear about, I read the notes. Has everybody read the notes that that Barry put into our document?
Sorry, I haven't.
Okay, well, I'll just bring it up, which you can have them here while we're talking. Can you guys see that?
Yeah, thank you. If you could maximize the text instead of the gray part.
Can you see that?
Yeah, that's good. Yep. For all those people watching later, they'll be able to see it. Good.
Yeah, hi everybody. This is Barry.
Hey Barry.
Hi Barry.
I tried to summarize, obviously, in writing, but if I were going to add anything, it would just be that when the conversation opened, I had the impression that Nash was a little bit resistant to the idea of assigning values to the co-op, kind of what we had inferred from his response and what we had speculated about in our conversation. I sort of kept on him. We had an asynchronous, more like a letter writing back and forth in Discord over the course of about 48 hours. By the end of which he had made the suggestion that actually the values we should be thinking about would be related to the governance of the platform itself. So I really appreciated his engagement and patience with me kind of playing Lois Lane with him, but I was a little bit perplexed, to be honest, because I thought we were kind of trying to seed ground to make him happy. And then it seemed like he kind of went in the opposite direction, in a sense.
So can you go through each of these bullet points that you wrote in your in the document and talk about what they mean?
Yes, I can. So I think what Nash was suggesting was basically if there's one thing that is a shared purpose here or reason for us all to be participating in this enterprise, it's the launch of the platform itself. And there are certain features or characteristics of the platform that he put forth as sort of things that everyone would want for the platform, that he believes that everyone shares those objectives for the RChain platform itself, the blockchain or BlockDAG. And he was saying, let's work backwards from that. Why don't we say that really the shared value we have is launching a product with these characteristics? And then he said, if you want to talk about the values, talk about other values that we have beyond just launching a product that looks like this, work backwards from thinking about what would your values be that would cause you to want to launch a product that has these features. And presume that those are values that we all share, since we know, or at least maybe in quotes, we know that we all share the value of launching a platform with this list of characteristics. Now, the one thing that I struggle with here is a mix of feeling that it's exciting to consider sort of the homework assignment or challenge from Nash to think about the interaction of values and the operation of the platform and the system architecture. I think those are important sources of value to the platform and the ecosystem and are very interesting. But I personally also believe that there's room to discuss values that relate more narrowly, in some sense, to decision-making, culture, etc., as we discussed, with respect to the community that makes up the co-op itself, as distinct from anything that directly impacts any of those network operation or design type questions. So to me, it almost seems like a Venn diagram, but there's some overlap, but I believe we are talking about two different things. And I think we had viewed our mandate as at least initially dealing with that co-op values rather than sort of the network related values.
Oh yeah, okay, that's really interesting. Before we go further, would somebody take notes today, other than me, for doing meeting notes afterwards? Anybody? Well, then it's perhaps at the very end, everybody keep in mind what we talked about, so we can just review what we want to put in the meeting notes. So did anybody, we had, this goes back to us wanting to distinguish what we're tasked with, co-op values and platform values. And is this a US us co-op versus for all of our chain? Did anybody have a discussion with the board or executive or on this? We didn't get that far.
No, you know what Barry was just talking about. I'm thinking about where you draw the line between co-op and platform, where the co-op needs to make decisions, and we need values and principles to guide us in making those decisions. But some of those decisions are about the platform. So there is that crossover. So kind of where do we draw the line? Is a little tricky.
This goes back to the question of, do we need to define the purpose first? And I think that's what Barry's saying here. He talked about a pretty cold steel platform here and didn't introduce governance and cooperation at all in his statement of purpose. Which is where our values really come in.
Okay, so we are seeing that co-op values will influence platform values.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. I'm just channeling Nash here. Nash does not want constraints put on this platform, and I don't think any of us want we're all very careful about putting these constraints on, because it makes it a less effective platform to do all these things that we want. So sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, I mean, this becomes the crux of the issue. And I don't know if any of you saw what I posted in the government's forum today, that Vlad on Twitter put out a poll among his followers, which got a lot of activity and interest about back to the child porn issue on the blockchain, and whether you're going to fork or not, or whether you're node, whether you're hosted or not, and which goes back to values. So, so if we're not platform values, you understand what I'm saying? It's like we need to have clarity under, I mean, at the beginning of this, we have put together a list. Why does our chain need principles and values? To inform the norms in which we operate, to inform co-op decision-making, to onboard new members, to inspire and attract others, to create effective branding, and to set member expectations. All of this seems doable for us because it's about the co-op and the co-op operations. So are we going to consider that this will be our scope, and we're not going to concern ourselves with how it affects the platform?
That could get us moving forward a little quicker, I think.
Barry, Jim?
Well, I guess I'm not.
I
Really,
think it makes sense to separate them if possible. I think our starting scope is probably going to be a little bit more accessible to us and to the part of the membership that is interested in the outcomes of this process at the moment. Might find it a little bit more accessible if the discussion is along the lines of we have decisions that we need to make as a group. We're a group distributed across the globe. We have some infrastructure we're trying to put into place, but it's experimental externally. It's an experiment internally to adopt it. We're trying to figure out how to make decisions as a group. Is there any sort of tablets we can bring down from the mountain that will help us interact as a group to effectively make decisions together?
I like that.
Very biblical of you.
Okay, so it sounds like to me, Nash's, what I'm understanding from him is that he would like us to start with thinking about the values that were intrinsic in wanting and how the platform operates, as being some of the core values that many members would share intrinsically. And from there would be other values that members share, which could inform all of these items that we have here, our decision-making processes. So with that, did you guys see that up here under our purpose? I still have the purpose whiteboard notes, and what is interesting about those is that they kind of do the same thing that our discussion is, which is that we have these digital compute platform values here, which embody a lot of values that were expressed in our member survey: decentralized, available to everyone, in other words, inclusive, open, censorship resistant, economically sustainable, fair, transparent, enabling collaboration. I would say several of those were value statements in our member list. And then ultimately support the creation of a world for everyone we want to live in. And this is where we get more expansive. So if we have all these values here, cooperation at scale and scalable governance, I went ahead and, let's see here. Let me just pull this up. So I went ahead and just took the spreadsheet that we had and just put this in list mode just so that it'd be easier to kind of look at. So this is from the 7 people that we have listed so far. And I basically took the core values, and then there's a lot of crossover with when they filled out the more inclusive of aspirational values. So I basically put these here, and then I only added additional values that were not specifically among people's core values listed here. We can go over this later, but I guess at this point, our list is, there's some which are starting to percolate towards the top already. So I think the next step is, before we start trying to collate these and rank them to get some more consensus towards a list that we would actually talk about and vote on, do we want to get more survey results, and who and how do we want to include more members?
At risk of derailing this, which is really not at all my intent, I just want to ask what feels like a potentially relevant side question that maybe you can just tell me is not actually relevant. But I'm thinking a little bit in terms of a constrained optimization, and I think this sort of maps into your core values versus nice to have values. So, like, for example, if Nash says, look, we're here because we want to build this platform, then you could say the most important value is one that's make or break for that. So I don't know if that's like effectiveness or, you know, being able to act nimbly or whatever, something like that. And sort of, if we lose that, then there's nothing for the co-op to be involved in, because there's no platform. And so, you know, this is just an experiment that goes nowhere. So I guess the question is, as we're thinking about something like inclusion, engagement, kind of member participation, how can we evaluate from where we are now in our capacity to be effective while serving those other goals, as like weighing in on what values we can accept without jeopardizing something as fundamental as getting a network launched in a reasonable amount of time? Or is that not even like really, I mean, in some ways it seems like sort of the development of the software is happening. We're not making decisions today that are directly impacting that. But if, for example, we're making decisions around a marketing plan, and if there's a question about how a decision like that should be made, you know, is that within scope of sort of what we want as these to lead to?
So what I hear you saying is that our values will determine the how we do things, which it already has. We have, you know, transparency is obviously one of our core values, which is how we operate already. So these democracy, decentralization, transparency, inclusion, these would all be part of that. Um, so do we want to, I guess I'm just trying to, in terms of ranking, is that, do we just want to use the responses we have to start ranking and putting together a list and survey more people, or do we not feel we need to do that? Or is that more for the expanded values?
I think we should start doing that as the as part of the experiment of using Lumio.
Meaning, we already have a survey here. Should we just post it, and if people who want to respond to it, they can, and then start transferring things into Lumio?
Well, the idea, as I see it, is we sort of have to pare down the list and see what types of things we want to include, and have discussion on it in the Lumio thread.
I disagree. I'm sorry. I just, first of all, I think, I'm sorry to interrupt, but bringing on another tool, I don't think is the answer here. First, I think we need to separate and split off co-op values for how we do our co-op governance apart from platform governance, which is more technical, algorithmic, and follows a different set of goals.
That's
okay.
I don't think we're going to get anywhere or get very far making just one set of values for the whole thing, because we're going to get a lot of kickback from the developers and for people who are advocating just for the platform, independent of the whatever kind of governance system we're setting up behind it. Sorry.
Okay, so all right, so I agree that we're going to end up in the weeds if we start trying to consider these as being platform values. So then those people who, if these are considered co-op values for, I go back to focusing on the clear questions, reasons we are doing this, right? Which I thought that was really important. So in doing so, Barry, you brought up the intrinsic platform values, and I believe that they seem to be listed in almost all of our core values to start with, unless you can see some here, which you might say that you don't see listed. I mean, to me, the top of our list engenders those. Is there anything on here? I know that open source, open governments, no censorship, freedom. These down here, these were Nash's responses. So if we look at this list, some of these kind of engender each other, right? Do we want to, the first question is, do we want to get more we want to start paring this list down now. Do we want to get more responses first?
So when you say responses,
The survey.
Right, but the survey did not distinguish between platform and co-op.
I think it was co-op values. I mean, we said R-chain co-op values is what we made the statement when we sent out the. So you're saying that we need to be specific when we ask people, and I think Barry mentioned that we should put at the top, which I agree, which is basically have these questions. Why does R-chain need to establish principal values? And we have this list at the top of that survey thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, the platform values is a separate exercise entirely.
Okay.
And, you know, it's not addressed in why we're doing this here.
Right. We're just letting everybody know that, so there's no confusion that we're saying, you know, that the blockchain itself should be anything. We're not going there right now.
Okay. So then, if we want to put the, let's update the introduction to the survey and put it out there and see if we have, I think we'll probably end up with similar results, but do we want to send this out to start with everybody at the work group, on the governance work group, or do we want to just post it on the members site on Discord? What do people think?
I think it's very easy to post it in a couple places on Discord, and we can even pin the post so that it sticks. But we've kind of got to tell people and educate them when they're in a channel to click on the little thing that shows them what's pinned in the channel.
Is that something you could do?
Oh yeah, I can pin the post wherever it's appropriate. But I'm saying, you know, we're also going to kind of individually have to handhold people and say, you know, either you're going to repost it because it's going to keep getting lost and scrolled up in the history, or we're going to have to remind people, like, you know, hey, go to this channel and check it out. Just it's pinned there.
So I think this is a good thing to do. So I would say, how many responses do we feel would be enough?
Oh.
So we should put a time limit on this, or,
Yeah.
or a people limit or something to have a.
Yeah, time limit sounds good. We can't enforce a people limit very well.
Okay, I'm just going to put it here.
And also, we're not going to be able to control where these who's responding. So basically, anybody in the world can respond to this. We might be advertising it just to members, but you know, anybody who gets the link is going to be able to reply. So it's not necessarily going to be representative of the membership, but
Can't we post it in a members only channel?
That won't matter.
It won't?
No.
Oh.
Well, it matters in the sense that the norm is you don't post stuff from the members only channel to a wider audience.
Yeah, that'll help. I'm just saying, yeah, that's what we should do. We should post it in member channels, but it's just the responses to this thing. It's not. This is not like a vote. It'll be hard for us to verify that. You know, we can't very well match a response with an individual. In other words, somebody could fill this thing out and say that they're Ian, and you know, so.
Okay. Okay. So everybody, tell me what they think. Do we want to put this to the general public or just email it to specific individuals?
Well, I think we should put it in the, just like Jim said, in a couple of the member channels.
Okay. Should we make it time dependent? Should we say give people a specific amount of time, like an end date?
Yeah. Should we make it? Well, today's Friday. Do you want to make it a week, or what do you think?
I'm not really familiar with the rhythms in Discord. Does that sound about right to people?
Well, the thing is, it would be great to the rhythms of our chain revolve around Wednesday. So, you know, if you've got something
today, people will be hanging out on Discord on Wednesday.
I was saying that Wednesday is when the opportunity to report anything significant back to the greater group. Okay. As for when Discord is most active, yeah, Wednesdays are busy, and actually Fridays are generally pretty busy.
Okay. I think what would be helpful, why don't, I can also send it out in a link out in the group email to the governance work group as a whole, which will, some of those people were the initial people surveyed, but many weren't. Does that sound good too?
Oh yeah, it's just a link. We should send it wherever.
Yeah, okay. So Ian, if you post it in the members thing, if you want to look through this, I think it looks good. I just listed all these items, and so then we will hear back.
So in crafting the R-Chain's values, or in crafting R-Chain Cooperative's values?
Oh, you're right.
So get rid of the article for one. Or I'd get rid of the and just put R-Chain Cooperative, right?
Okay. So I will email it out, and Ian, you can send that out. Everybody's agreed. So just from a functional point of view, when the values surveys come in, I'm not sure who populated the fields in this. Did somebody do this by hand, or does it do it automatically with the survey coming in? Did you put this up, Jim?
It comes in there automatically.
Okay, great. So maybe afterwards then we can divide up the tasks when they come in for parsing out, this is okay. Basically, just adding in additional values that aren't in here, and maybe we have a way of, we can go through and just do marks for people who have multiples, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to put down the same ones, and then we would just move up based upon the number of people who voted, who wrote down the same words.
Well, if it's just words, I mean, this is more than words. People are going to be writing narrative.
The same well, for example, a lot of people wrote down some things that were very similar, extended vocabulary for the same value, which I narrowed it down for some of these core values. You guys can go through and take a look and see if you feel that's appropriate.
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, of course, you know, we always lose something in simplification, but I do like what you've done.
Okay. Okay, great. So then we were going to talk about what's next. Oh yeah, how this work group wants to operate. I want to get out of sharing. So first off, did everybody get the poll for changing the time of this meeting?
Yeah, I saw it.
I think, like Aaron, some other people responded they wanted to have it a little bit earlier. So it's okay with me, you guys, yes?
Yes.
Is Thursday an option for everybody here as well? I don't think Barry's here.
Yeah, I actually filled out the doodle poll and I filled in some times on Thursdays and Fridays. I'm going to be a little bit unreliable because I don't always have control of my own calendar, so things can come up and supersede this, but I filled in all the times that I thought I would be able to make it as frequently as possible.
Okay. Do we just want to keep the group open and have people come and go? Do we feel like they're...
That's the question I wanted to get to. Because for working groups in general, because some groups want to be a little more closed and some are completely open. I mean, look at the governance working group. That's got a lot of people, and I believe it's completely open, right? There's no set membership.
Correct.
I do believe that Kathy had put proposals for defining that, but it hasn't been yet.
Okay. What I've done with, say, like there's a membership site working group, and so for that working group, I proposed that the guide and the scribe, one of them needs to be contacted in order to approve anyone's admittance into the group.
Oh, okay.
So just using the Google Groups mailing list, that's pretty easy to do. That anyone who is a manager of the group can have the authority to authorize a new member. And then, you know, I'll just put in the chat what I did for the working group, for the new member working group. I think I wrote something like this. So I said, anyone can request membership to the working group to join. Okay, doing so, you get access to the mailing list and the shared G Drive. You have to be a co-op member, and you need to reach out to either Ian or Patrick on our chain to be authorized. So I'm just thinking, as a model for a closed group, you know, there has to be a clear way to get in, and there should also be some clear reporting back to the co-op as to, you know, what folks are doing in there. So I don't know about this group, whether, I mean, my gut feeling is usually just have it more open until it turns into a circus. But everyone has different comfort levels with that.
Yeah, well, one of the things that, you know, we did in governance was we defined subgroups like this one. But of course, I guess we're still in the governance working group at all. But really, you know, one of the big determinants is, you know, are people are the people participating, and maybe there should be some notion of active members in terms of people that have participated or are participating, rather than just people getting their names added without being engaged.
Well, I mean, for board members, if you miss 3 board meetings, I think 3 more board meetings in a row, you're out. But you know, but for these working groups, we need a path for new people to come on as well. So, I mean, what are you proposing? What kind of mechanism to add and remove?
I think for me, the main issue is productivity. So long as we aren't spending a lot of time, you know, getting new people up and running or having to, so long as, you know, I'm all for more people being engaged, providing it's keeping us moving forward. So right now, I think I like the asking people to sign on that you have, Ian. I don't know, we feel right now the need to, it's not like we have like 20 people in here who are causing problems.
And also, we're soliciting a lot of feedbacks. I mean, so we're looking to be really engaged. I mean, no one can complain that we're being, you know, opaque.
Right.
Yeah, I think that, this is a real issue for the governance group. I don't think it's an issue for this group at this point.
Speaking of which, on a personal note, I, when I took on being leader of this group, I just kind of jumped in the deep end, and I freelance and I have projects come in, and I just had a big Amazon project come in. So I am going to have to hopefully ask that somebody else take over leadership to be more consistent, because I'm going to have to be out for 2 weeks and then back, and then at least for the next month or so. So I'm hoping.
Can we pause and congratulate you momentarily before you continue? That's great news. Good job.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, well, no, it's what I do. But when you, as you know, when you're self-employed, it's kind of all or nothing. So that's the way it goes.
You got to hunt when the herd is out there.
That's right. It's you're either too busy or not busy enough. So that's just the nature of the beast. So given that, are you willing to take the reins, Jim?
Barry?
Jim, you have a lot of reins, don't you? And Ian, I guess the same is true for you. So some fairness norms suggest that I should step up.
At the same time, I think some of this activity can be merged back into the governance group as one of the larger governance group's activities. I mean, we can this thing can be fluid.
Okay. Well, I mean, you can provisionally lend me your seat for a couple weeks while you're out there knocking Amazon into shape.
Well, I guess the only other thing would be who wants to. I mean, I can still. We put out the doodle poll about the new meeting time, and we just kind of threw out when we started this to establish a weekly meeting. So we could change that rhythm. I think it's nice to have a weekly meeting because it just allows people who can show up to catch up. Maybe as things get fluid. I think this is really going to become more of an issue once our values are defined and we get into principles, because then that gets really pretty detailed. So so let's just, so far only 4 people have responded to my doodle poll, and a lot of people are relatively open. I know that Jonathan is definitely wants to be involved. Dan, I got the impression daytime just don't work for him for meeting, but so I will just pass on that to you, Barry, and depending upon time next week that's chosen, I may be able to show up, but I appreciate you taking over leadership on this.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And given my occasional collision with another meeting, I'll just have to hand it off to one of the other folks if that happens.
Yeah, so Barry, for you, which day is the best for you in general, just so that we can...
This time on Fridays is probably the safest, but I'm on the West Coast and I know it's tough for some other people. So I'm not opposed to moving to the date that has the most people available with the expectation that... Sure. Does that sound right? We maximize for participation first at the potential cost of needing to, switch moderators at times?
Yeah, it's just, it becomes harder to coordinate.
If you can help create the agenda in the agenda doc, then we can, at least we'll have a direction in the case that you do get stuck.
Hang on.
That sounds good.
How come this is in Pacific time? Why is it showing me Pacific time? Oh, boy.
What are you looking at?
The doodle poll.
I just did it as items. It says PST for every item. I put Pacific Standard Time for each item.
Right, it's supposed to show it in my time zone, though. And there's something wrong with my calendar. I think it's stuck in its Pacific time. I have to figure out how to fix it.
Let me just get the Google poll, the Doodle poll up for you guys. I think because it's under my thing. So here's the Doodle poll, the way it looks like right now. I added Thursday after the fact. I don't think Jonathan has chimed in on that. So it looks like 11 a.m. Fridays or 11 a.m. Thursdays have got the most votes so far. You can see that, right, Jim?
Yes, I have it up as well. I don't know why 12 Thursdays. Oh.
Okay, so any conclusions based on looking at this? Does 11 a.m. Thursday or 11 a.m. Fridays work for people?
Yeah.
Okay, so Barry, is that a possibility for you?
Yes. Yeah, I would say we should go with the most participation. So one or the other of those. Jim and Ian does 11 a.m. Pacific. I guess that's 2 p.m. for you guys on one of those 2 weekdays. Feel better? The Thursday or Friday?
Thursday, I have a problem. I just entered my times.
Oh, got it.
So it looks like it looks like 11 a.m. PST Fridays is what's available.
Yeah, Jonathan, you should, I added these last 2 days. I think he's still at this conference. I added Thursday after the fact when I realized that Friday wasn't getting enough attention. So he may be available on those 2 days. He just hasn't had a chance to respond yet. I sent out a email. So Fridays, if Fridays works, Friday will work for me as well in time. Yes. Shall we go?
Thursday. Looks like I need that. 11, 12, 2, Thursday.
Okay, so we're going to say.
So one question, I know that somewhere I read something along the lines of certain working groups are official. They are official because they have been given a mandate by a governing body such as the board or the executive committee, and some work product is expected from them, and they know what they're supposed to do and we want them to do it. Do we know if we're official in that sense? Is that definition of official even official?
Well, I do know, I mean, actually, Jim, I'd love you to clarify, because there was, I went on GitHub, which I'm not that familiar with, to check out there was an issue, 471, and it had disappeared, and I don't really know what happened there. Did they just get closed, or? I'm afraid I still haven't quite figured out how that all works yet. Can you hear us, Jim?
Yeah, I'll get off mute here. That would help. This is not it's not that official. I mean, it was sort of grew up in two ways. It branched off the nomination and governance committee, in that governance wasn't taken to be their mandate according to the bylaws. And then in the governance forum is where we started, is where the governance working group began. And then we spawned off of the governance group. So in a decentralized organization, you should be able to take a large group and bud off other working groups from it. If those working groups set up a subgroup, but the whole structure has not been formally defined at this point, as far as I know. The best is, what Kenny was saying. Well, we start out with interest groups, and people who are interested in the same thing can form working groups, but it isn't until they get linked into the fabric of the organization that they become official. And in my view, that's having the high bandwidth connection between people who are in multiple groups that keep the activities coordinated, and by their consent processes, they don't step on each other's toes, and they don't do excessive duplication of effort, and because of this human connection between the teams, the work groups, you can develop the collective intelligence.
Specifically, though, the governance work group has a budget, and we are a subgroup of that work group, from what I understand. Am I wrong? That was what I was understanding. And therefore, we're tasked as being part of the governance work group because we are achieving one of their goals.
I wasn't aware that they had a budget except through the bounty system.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry?
I said that is what I was talking about.
So if we, if we look at issue 471.
Yeah, what happened to that?
It's there. It's a new issue. And
oh, when I went up there, it was closed.
Really? I don't see in the history. Let me see.
Maybe it got reopened? Or maybe I just don't know how to use GitHub.
Yeah. I don't see any history here that it was ever closed.
Oh, okay.
Oh, closed 7 days ago.
Yeah, so that's why I was confused.
Okay, so, and then Dan reopened it the same day.
So it's open now?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was only closed closed and reopened on the same day.
Well, maybe offline, off of this meeting, you could walk me through that.
Okay, and we can, we should go to the rewards sheet, okay, which I can show you if, I mean.
Sure, let me get out of,
Yeah, I'm running out of time. It's getting near the top of the hour.
Okay,
well, can we consider
we can do
that
this.
so the decision is for meetings to be 11 a.m. on Friday. Is that right, Barry?
We agreed on 11 a.m. I might have zoned out when we agreed on Friday, but I'm happy with that decision. So let's say 11 a.m. on Friday.
Okay. All right. So I will change that in the meetings, and I will update the meeting notes. Does anybody please add agenda items for if there are any after the meeting notes for next week. Otherwise, we're just going to continue on with gathering surveys. And I guess we're done with the meeting. If Jim, you want to stay on with me after we stop recording, and you can show me how this thing works.
Yeah, and I'm not sure we have to stop recording.
Okay.
Since
Just so
other,
I can so the entire world can
other
see
people
how much
will
I
need to
don't
see
know.
but let me just briefly
Okay, I'm gonna head out.
encourage
All right,
people
bye,
to
Ian.
participate in the
Bye, Ian. Thank you.
Bye bye. Thanks.
Right. I want to encourage people to participate in the Lumio experiment here, and
Okay.
this just shows with my rankings in there what the top four are, and each person can choose. This is editing the survey. So it shows what your responses are, and you can change if when you go in to change your vote, the top 5 positions that you have to move things into. So if you move something up into the top 5 anyway, it gets counted. So you get to choose 5 that you want.
Is that just a number you chose, or is it
That's just the
designed?
number I chose.
Okay.
Okay, the idea is, I guess, rather than having to order a whole huge list, people just have to select their top 5, and that way you get what's really important to them.
I like that. I think once we, once we get our collection of, however many we're going to end up with to choose from, like 15 or whatever, I like this interface for looking through stuff. Unless the website, there's no news yet on the website being up and running in the next couple weeks.
Okay, so we can add new options. We can delete the ones that are not popular and add the new ones that come in.
Okay, but don't we want to, if we actually do this, like for real, we want to populate it with our final list, right?
Well, this is the experiment is about also how useful is this for creating the list collectively?
It's only as useful as people are willing to go to Lumio for, and right now,
well, not everybody has to participate for us to determine its usefulness, right?
oh, so this is just to see if Lumio works for us.
Right. And
Okay.
voters may add options. I have checked yes. So, so any voter can add options according to this. But actually,
But just
when
to clarify, this is just a Lumio experiment. This is not about our process right now.
it's for, you know, for us to evaluate how we might use it in the future, and it can give us insights into it can give us insights into what people think. We can see here, we can see that, you know, the responses of people and the comment they have about it. I favor what I consider more ARCHAIN specific values. Okay, that was my comment. But
Okay.
so you know it, and in the thread here we have discussion. Okay, so we can see that you know, Barry made a comment, and you know, so this is a discussion space where we can talk about it as well.
I just want to clarify, though, that this is a Lumio experiment. This is not our actual process, because I think it's important to distinguish, because I think it's going to confuse people.
Well, you know, I mean, we don't really have a channel where we can discuss these things, except for the Lumio test right now, and we have to see how well that works. You know, for you know, whether we want to adopt this or not.
Okay.
Okay. You know, I think that since we don't have a discussion space, you know, this is giving us a great value here, besides a multitude of decision tools that are available here.
Okay.
Okay, instead of Doodle, you can use Lumio to schedule dates, for example, which, you know, it's most people are okay with using Lumio. It does expose our members to tracking to some extent, but I guess I can use it anonymously. So that is the Lumio experiment. The other thing is the thing here. The first thing you do is log in.
Okay.
And then you have to verify your co-op membership once.
Right. Okay.
Okay, this is the bounty system. This is how we get reimbursed at present. Okay, so we search for values. For example, we see that there's gather, publish a list of values that ARCHAIN would. That one's closed.
I think I searched for it by number, and since it was closed when I searched for it, I guess that's why I couldn't find it.
Yeah, you must have. It was only closed for a very short window. Okay, so working group to define values. What happened here? Why doesn't it give me the choice to vote? I wonder if there's a problem with it. Let me click on bounty process. That's not it. I don't know. It looks like it's broken.
Oh, maybe that's why I couldn't get it to work.
Well, I mean, it was working the last time I did it, but I don't see any way. Now, if I click on this, you have to click on it. Then you get the window down here filled, and then you can go to budget votes, and I can see that Dan voted for $1,500 here. I'll put in a budget vote. I'll put in 2,000. Maybe it should be higher.
Is this for
This is for everybody.
what time period does this? Is it related to a time period?
Sort of. At the end of the month, we're going to assign percentages of the budget to people. Okay, and then we can, if we can spend the whole budget, or we can choose not to spend the whole budget, depending on what was accomplished.
So should we assign, should we have either a time amount or a work product amount associated with the budget so that we know how to do that? Like if we said this is for what we're going to do during meetings and in between meetings for 1 month, then we would know if we had the meetings or not during that month. And then the next month we would set a new budget for that month.
Yeah.
If we're saying there's some work product, then we would know what percentage of the work product had we generated during the first month.
Yeah, it's, it's a little fuzzy now. I mean, if you look at the issue, and I don't know why the issue doesn't click, but what am I doing? Okay, if you, what was it again, 471?
Yes.
Let me just look here. Okay, if you look at the template, okay, there's a measure of completion, which I put here, which we can certainly change. Executive Committee and Marketing Working Group approved publication of the Arch Chain Principles and Values. Now, if we don't budget enough for that this month, we have to can then estimate the amount of work left, and we can add to the budget next month. But for this month, I think we have to look at the. We have to decide how we pay each other. This is the system where that's where we make the decision, and our reputation, stake our reputations basically on making sound decisions.
Okay, so basically consider that it might be a 2-month process, or
I don't know how long it's going to take. Obviously it's going to stretch into next month.
If you go back to that last one, it said that the working group will put together a budget later on.
The level of effort, number of people engaged in the process is variable. We hope to maximize it. Assuming 10 people contributing an average of 3 hours, 30 hours, the working group will suggest an actual budget at a later date.
That's the part that I was curious about.
Right. We're hoping to get a great deal of engagement and participation, and we can adjust the budget.
But are we then paying people for their time, or are we like what is? See, it's confusing to me, because if we were talking about work product, it would be largely independent of the participation.
Well,
the work product is better if more people have participated in providing us feedback on their values, but not necessarily the more people that participate in the process of eliciting the values.
Yeah, it's the working group time. It's the hours we spend in meetings. In Digital Life Collective, they like to say, the work is the conversation. okay, that, we're solving problems here. Time is our most valuable asset. If we're being effective, if we're getting things done in the process of having our conversations, then that is the work, and we should be rewarded for that.
So the way bounties work is that you make a proposal, and then 3 people chip in and come up with the number, and then somebody votes, or who votes?
Yeah.
Or
Well, as many people.
I think it's a minimum of 3 people, but not limited to 3 people.
and then so how does the let's say I put in here and I put in $2,000 too. I think that's for the month of March, more or less. Then how does it work from there?
So I think then if I go in and I put in 100,000, then it becomes the average of those 2 things.
Seriously?
So it's like 51,000. But then someone else can come in. No, someone else can then come in. I'm using big numbers to make it clearer. So someone else can come in and say, that's ludicrous. I'm going to vote 0. And from now on, I don't trust Barry or something. That part we're still working on, I think.
Yeah, I think at this point, and I don't know how Dan's implemented here, you could put in minus 100,000 so you cancel out the vote of the other person.
But let's say that there ended up with the agreement of $2,000. What happens then?
Well, it's going to get the average of all the budgets proposed, and then after the end of the month, okay, then we go to rewards, and we see the people that have it only has Dan and myself as participating.
How do I get in there as a participant? That's what I don't get.
Well, if you comment on the issue, you should be included.
I did comment on the issue.
Okay, so we put in new reward vote.
Maybe it's because Dan.
All right. So what's your Gmail?
Oh, I'm not in there as my G. Look under Karen. I think it's under.
This is only Gmail addresses. I mean, not Gmail. GitHub.
Yes. So it's Karen Moskowitz or Karen M. Should be under Karen M. K.
I don't know the alphabet.
There it is. K Moskowitz. That's me.
K Moskowitz. Okay, and we can put in a percent here for you, 20%. I'll vote.
And I guess I'm also not in there. My GitHub handle is Barney Cinnamon.
Right, you could add yourself. You're supposed to add yourself.
Oh, okay. Okay. So this is the test I have to pass. I have to figure out how to do that to get in there.
Yeah. Well,
You and me both.
So what is it?
Let's find Barry.
That's why I'm recording this, because it's really important. Then they complain when they
well, there are 2 impediments. I mean, there's a technical impediment, and then I feel I have this conscientiousness impediment where I'm like a little bit sheepish about taking any rewards because I can negotiate against myself very effectively that, well, you were just hanging out and talking to people. It was fun.
Yeah. I can see, I don't know how I got on here. I thought Dan has something here which automatically adds you. And it may be that you need to be an assignee in the project. You have to assign yourself to the issue. So when you go to the issue here, we can see that, oh, the two assignees are Amika and myself.
How do we assign ourselves? Oh, you have
You
to.
click assignees here and you get the list.
And you go to.
And you know, I can assign you here, but HJ is going to yell at me because he says, don't assign people. Let them assign themselves.
Well, you're assisting us. Assigning.
Oh, okay. No. Well, so remind me the number of the issue, and then I'll go do that and make HJ happy.
All you have to do is search for values, and you'll get it. Searching works great.
My whole life has been a search for values, Jim.
471.
Thank you.
Well, this is kind of nice to see this. I actually, had to put a lot of time into getting the documents and drawing going on this thing. So.
And I'd really appreciate if some people participate in the Lumio experiment.
I will. I'm going to go there right after this, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to seed some of the values from our member list in there as well, just so we can see it.
Yeah, you should be able to add values there, and we might want to remove some of them. I don't know if you'll have permission to remove them or not. Probably not. So I may have to.
Well, I think, like I say, I still want this to be the experiment, and then when we actually go for it, we may, tweak it and.
Yeah. We want to make it a little bit realistic if we can. And that's why I'm saying to refine the list. Refining the list, we're going to be adding things and we're going to be deleting things.
Yes.
Things at the very bottom, we can just delete.
Right.
So that there's not too many. Otherwise, we'll have a million choices.
Exactly, which is why I think polling the members and creating a list that goes in there to start with, not just throwing everything in there, is what we need to do, because otherwise it's going to drive us crazy.
Well, what I'm suggesting is that feedback, we remove the things that get no votes. Okay, and then
I have a basic problem with this whole thing, which is that it really comes down to people who have the time and effort to discover and start using a new tool. And you basically sort out the people who don't, right? As an experiment,
that seems like kind of a general problem with all things co-op, right?
Yeah, well,
but it's a good point. I don't say that to poo-poo the comment. It's a good point. It's happening here. But it's also happening all over the place, of course.
And no matter how you do it, you have the same problem. No matter what tool you use, okay,
But if when we get the website up and running, then that should be solved, right?
Well, that's a new tool. It's going to be hard to get.
I know, but it will be like the one place that everybody will go to, hopefully.
Yeah, well, it'll be one place, but it'll, it's going to link to other tools. Hopefully we can. Would be some tools there that we can use. That's true.
So I guess if the Lumio experiment works well, then, and we really want to use that as a tool, then we just need to once we want to make our final decisions on there, then we just need to publish the hell out of it. Because is it actually a voting format?
And there's been a lot of talk about partnering with Lumio, and Patrick just brought it up again in the nomination committee. There's a number of people that are associated with the Inspiral co-op. It's a co-op. It has common values with our chain, so there may be wider of it, at least if we're familiar with it, we can participate in the discussions as to whether we're going to adopt it or.
Well, okay, so I will, after we get off here, I will go and take a look at it and participate. And on that note, thanks for going through
Great.
the GitHub, the bounties thing with me. It really clarified things for me.
Yes, me too. Thanks, Jim.
Very good. Have a good one. See you next week.
All right, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend.